Yeah.
Okay. I
That's
pressed
good.
it and I'm recording. We're recording, everybody. We're live recording. So be careful what you say. All right. So I'll get started. I'm just going to be on here. This will be kind of the goal of this, just to go over the things that you were supposed to kind of look at, but then I can give you my 2 cents on each item, and you can go back and revisit that information, and then I'll post the link for the parent conference sign up. And if you are wanting to have an additional parent conference one-on-one, then we can do that. If it's going to be via Zoom, but we can also do it in person if you'd rather have it in person, but we just need to arrange that. If it's going to be in person, we're probably going to go like before school or after school, like that. Okay, so first off, now I got to figure out how am I going to share my screen.
Right next to the record.
Wow, you're really good at this.
I do this too. So you're really good at a lot of things.
I was really good at it.
I love it when my students tell me how to do it because it just saves time.
I was really good at it.
I bet you were.
A year and a half ago, but then it's one of those bad memories that I probably on purpose got rid of the knowledge of how to use Zoom, so I can claim.
This is a really good way to go do parent-teacher conference. I'm impressed with it.
Okay, so this is what we'll talk about. Go ahead and interrupt me. I'm not monitoring the chat, so don't put anything in the chat. Or if you do, I'm not seeing it. So just ask a question. So the objective of this little thing was kind of go through each item that I feel is most important. Probably most important is this information here. For you, make sure you have their username and their password for Google, so you can log in to their account and see what we're doing, and also be able to access their homework or their brainwork packet. So you can just write directly on that packet for your parent comment or your signature. Okay, and then we have Think Central. Of course, that's kind of the main homework thing there, but the most important item on that is how we're completing our assignments. No assignment should really be less than 70% going forward, because they can always ask for help on that. They don't. Most of the kids score 80% or higher on any assignment, but if they're clicking the view example or the step-by-step, sometimes it won't let them go back and redo a question. So they get that wrong, but it's not really wrong. So as long as they gave it their effort and went back, I don't count that as wrong. So, but you shouldn't be doing that all the time. If you're doing that all the time, your score is going to probably be less than 70%, and then they should just ask for more help. Most important thing for this next trimester, and I think in preparing them for middle school and to be really successful, the classroom's super busy, and really we have such a diversity of abilities and interests. The most important thing that they should work on is their basic skills in language arts and math, and the best tool that I found for that is IXL. So I've been putting on the homework, like 2 a day, 15 a week for what I consider honors. But really at this point, building that solid foundation, this is the easiest way to really do that and demonstrate that. There are like 400 and something math skills in 5th grade, and there are about 200 ELA skills. So they should be working primarily in the 5th grade level, but there's the not ready for this button at the bottom. So if they face a skill that's too challenging, it's okay to click not ready for this, and then go to it kind of modifies it, goes to that next skill that's kind of before the task.
Richard, who's there? Are you on the phone?
Doing that would be, I think, in terms of work at home, should be priority 1. It would be awesome if all the kids could get to 400 by the end of the year. And so in order to do that, I just split it into kind of like thirds. So it's like 130 this trimester, another 130 next trimester, another 130 the next trimester. we do a lot of it in class, but they really should be doing it at home, and going just to a level 50 would be fine. Because if you can go, when the parents look at a report, it'll say they haven't mastered it yet if they don't have 90, a SMART score of 90. But to get from 50 to 90 and then 90 to 100 takes probably an extra 20 minutes or 10 to 20 minutes. And I'd rather have them see that skill again. So see the skill once, practice it a little bit, you get to 50, that's good practice. Later, if they've done all the skills, I'll ask the kids to go back and maybe try to get to 75. Or if they finish all those skills, to go to 90. What we've seen in the class is a couple things. Some kids are practicing at levels way too easy, and it's not really benefiting them. And some kids are doing skills that are not too hard for them. I think they find it challenging, so they want to work at an 8th, 9th grade level, but they need to master 5th grade first. So I recommend skills from the curriculum. I take the curriculum and I match them to an IXL skill for math and language arts. They should do those first. So the first thing on their brain work, their homework, is to attempt the recommended IXL skills. And you'll see that for next week's work, I kind of said they have to do the recommended skills because they weren't all choosing that. So they do that first, and then they can pick and choose other skills. But until they've got at least a SMART score of 50 and all 5th grade skills, they really should just work on 5th grade skills or the not ready for this skill. And if they press that, it might take them to a 4th grade skill or a 3rd grade skill, and that's fine too, because they're practicing a skill that's related to what we want to cover. So ScoopPad is something I've had every week for an honors task. I like this site because I choose state standards. It's been like I've kind of picked every week a different standard and addressed it. So now that we're in the 2nd trimester, I would highly recommend that they try to do that honors task. It's usually like 10 questions. Some can be challenging, but some can just be, developing mastery. So they really should start doing this activity, even though it's on the optional honors course. I think that, especially high achieving students should do ScoopPad every single week. It's typically the questions are a little bit deeper and harder. Plus you're able to hit various standards in one single lesson versus just like one lesson all about fractions. It might have, multiplication of fractions, division of fractions. It might have a word problem. It might have geometry in it. So it kind of allows them to rethink about the skills being covered. So that's a recommendation by the teacher for the kids that are looking to excel. So it's a STAR reading report. So I'm going to go over the STAR report. Here is, let's see, can you guys see that? Is that one being shared?
Yeah, we see under language arts, we do see it.
You see the Renaissance report? Is it on my screen?
No, it's not on your screen.
Yeah,
yet.
it's not.
All right, let me re-share that. Okay, now is it? Is that, you see it now?
Yeah, we can
Yes.
see it.
Okay.
Yeah, we can see it.
So this is a blank report, just to go over it. Any parents out there that are more versed in Lexiles than I am, jump on in. But typically, it used to be a grade equivalency here. Now they have this Lexile. What's strange about Lexile is it's like if all your kids took a test, similar test, it was a little bit more complex at the end of the year, and I got a Lexile score for them. They took the same test basically at the beginning of 5th grade, and it's a totally different number. So I think the Lexile score kind of matches to the grade level. So if they take the test as a 5th grader, they're going to have a higher number than if they took it at a 4th grader, which doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So I don't really put a lot of weight on that number, but this is a really fast and easy way to kind of see, are you at, above, or below grade level, a range of grade level. In terms of primarily vocabulary, there's a little bit of comprehension to it, but not much. It's kind of, I use it for vocabulary. So if you look at this score, this student is basically, you look at a range. So anything like 5, 6 would be kind of on level. 7, 8 would be above level. and, below 5, maybe 3, 4 would be below level in terms of, vocabulary development. But the thing is, you could take this test today and you could take it 10 minutes from now again, and you'd get totally different numbers. So you don't want to put a lot of weight on these numbers, but just look at it for like kind of a real quick point in time approximation of reading. But I will say that the students, when you look at this report for your child, the students that read a lot, surprise, surprise, have a very high vocabulary. So obviously the thing there is just the more you read, the higher your vocabulary is going to be. And I would say not just reading, I'd say audiobooks count for this too, as well as spoken language with, with you and your child, because, anything that helps develop that vocabulary, but reading vocabulary is kind of the point of this report. Okay. So anytime you want to check their test, they can retake this again. They could take it tonight. And the password is admin. When they go in, they sign in through Clever. It's through Accelerated Reader, and they have to have a monitor password, and the password's ADMIN, and they could retake that. When my youngest son was in school, I took this test with him just to see what he was doing. And he was a pretty good reader, but I saw things when I sat with him and I took it, we got to a point where he didn't know any of the words that were on this assessment, but he was able to use test taking strategies to kind of wean out like, well, I don't think that's right. And I'd say, why? He said, I don't know. He didn't know why he was choosing that word, but he must have heard that or somehow in context. So you might want to sit with your scholar and take this together just to see, what the assessment looks like, because it is pretty good data. All right, so let me get out of that.
Mr. A, is a username their email address?
They log in through, they just log in
Clever.
directly through Clever.
Okay.
And so they log in through Clever, and they log into Clever through the, using their Gmail. All right, let me get back to this. I can just share my desktop, I think. Is my whole desktop showing now?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So that's the STAR report. It's an important one for data. AR, of course. Now, I don't really care about the points as much as what this offers. It offers me a quick way to look at what they're reading, what type of books they're reading, but also how much they're reading, because it's when they read a book, they can somehow show some type of comprehension. But I encourage them to use the book as a resource when they're taking a quiz. I'm not trying to test their memorization. It's just more use the book as a resource. Go ahead and spend the time. Now, obviously, they shouldn't be getting all the answers from the text. They should know some of them after reading the text. But it is okay for them to use the text when they take the quiz. But I like AR because it allows me to look very quickly at the reading record. And here's a sample of that. Oh, that's Barrett's. That's not it. And here's a sample of that right here. Okay, so this, like a couple things, when I look at this report, I look at what are the types of books they're choosing to read, and then what's the frequency. And you'll see books like Bats at the Library. Well, that book was read by Mrs. Becker in the library, and it's okay for them to take small little quizzes on any book because you're still practicing comprehension skills. But Blood in the River was an in-class book. Hatchet was an in-class book. So those two books should be on everybody's record. And sometimes the scores on those might be a little bit lower because we're reading that out loud or through audiobook. And so it takes a long time to read it. So sometimes the comprehension is a little bit lower because they missed parts here and there as we might have read it over a month. But then you look at other books. So like this student's reading a lot. Most of their books are a pretty good level. You look over here at the points, and the points really are like small points, small book. Anything 4 or 5 points and above, it's a pretty hefty book. You look at their comprehension. Now it will spit out an average difficulty level. You can't say this is exact because you can't say a book is a 5.3, fifth grade, third month. You know, Blood on the River is a very challenging book. It's not a fifth grade level book. It's really more probably, I classify this as like upper, you know, middle school-ish, you know, upper elementary, middle school. So anything that's in a 4.5 to 6, 7 is an appropriate difficult book. It's a long chapter book. You know, like Harry Potter is a very difficult book. They grade it at 6.7. So they give you an average. So you look at the average, I'd say, okay, look at the average. Yeah, anything in the 4 to 6 range is really good, but most of the kids are going to be around 5 because they read some easier books and it takes that into consideration. But so look at this for what they're reading, what kind of book they're reading, their comprehension level. Are they using the text as a resource? But then the other thing you're looking at for here is genre, you know. So you look at this and you see historical fiction, fiction, graphic novel, picture book, you know, fantasy. So you look at the types of books that they're reading. And that to me is a main goal for most of the kids this next trimester. You know, try to diversify it a little bit. It is, and I don't want to say they have to read this or that book because we want them to enjoy reading, and especially if it's just for independence. But you should at least attack one biography or one, you know, not just all fantasy books or not just all graphic novels, if that's what your kid is hooked into. So at least this trimester, try to do something a little bit different for nonfiction or historical fiction or, you know, something like that. All right, so they get benchmark reading. Benchmark, did people get to look at the data in benchmark? We realized that the kids couldn't see their test results. So Elijah and Jonah helped me figure out how to do that. So now as they finish it and as I grade it, they should be able to review their test results. So that's a double-edged sword for parents because when you look at their test results,
Of the one or line, perhaps you have with us and Alaska Flight 1411 to Seattle. Here's today's
hello, somebody.
Safety is our highest priority. We appreciate your attention while we share some important safety information. Please review the safety information card in front of you, which shows what's new and the
Somebody's on an airplane.
Mr. A, you can mute everybody.
I have the ability to do it.
Emergency exits.
Yes, you do.
Vanessa, we can hear you if you just mute yourself. There
It's
you go.
not me. It's not me. I'm not talking. Okay, my house is
It
very quiet.
was, it
Okay.
was not her.
Yeah.
Somebody's going somewhere fun. Anyway, so when you look at their data on benchmark, do not be concerned by low scores. These are really difficult. We just took the unit 3 assessment and the scores were very low. So anything like 50% on the score on the test would be like approaching proficiency at this point. They're really hard questions. And usually like when I take the test, I usually get about, believe it or not, I get about 80% or 75% because they'll ask questions that are kind of inferential. And there's really usually 2 questions that to me sound right. It's not black and white. It's not clear. It's like, what do you think happened? Or what evidence is best for this? So when you start to look at their benchmark reading stuff, don't be overly concerned by percentages. Just instead use it as a teaching tool. Like, okay, well, let's talk about this. Why did you think that? You know, when you read it, why did you come up with that idea versus this idea? If they can get down to the top 2 answers, then they're in good shape. And if they pick the right one, they get credit. And I have yet to figure out exactly how to figure out why certain kids score really high and others don't. So it's hit and miss on the benchmark reading, but it is the kind of test that they're asked to take for, you know, state tests and things like that. So we want to practice it. I consider benchmark kind of more practice. And a lot of times I would rather do collaborative approach to these assessments than independent. So that's benchmark. So don't freak out if you see lower percentage scores on that. All right, most important after that is written expression. Here's their Oreo's response. The class in general has really improved a lot since the beginning of the year. So we have this is a response to text, written response. I copied and pasted some exemplars of really high quality responses to text. This is where they'd read a passage or two and they would write about it. It's something we're still working on, but what I see is the kids that use this format, the Oreos format, and push themselves to include all elements of it, write the best. The students that are struggling in this kind of writing, either they're not comfortable with the Oreo format or they're just reticent and they don't want to write. So they just kind of do what they've always done in the lower grades and not really put forth the best effort. And for those students, I typically say, hey, write at least 7 sentences with 7 period marks. Because if you say 7 sentences, sometimes they make 1 sentence that has 1 period mark at the end, but it's very long. So you say you need 7 period marks and 7 complete thoughts, and then it forces them, and then one of them or 2 of them can be textual evidence, just quoted from the text. So we're getting into the idea of using these texts as a basis for our writing, and the word that I think is best is to defend your opinions, defend your ideas, find evidence that supports that and proves it, not just giving your opinion and leave it at that. So you have to find some evidence to prove it. All right, so that's the Oreo writing. The other type of writing that we do, the essay writing, the state's kind of gone away from that a little bit, where now we're not really writing as many essays or creative writing. It's really text dependent stuff is what the goal is for the 5th graders, but that's typically the least exciting. So we will throw in some 5-part essays or 3 to 5-part essays where they get a free choice of topic and they get to write. And that's more geared towards, as they get to middle school. And then the other one is just fun narratives, some poetry, things like that. But I have seen huge progress in their writing, and a lot of it just comes from kind of an I can attitude or I'm willing to try attitude. And if the kids at home, if you ever want to play a really fun game, we call it the chair of fear or cheer, and they can sit in the chair in front of the class, and it's their choice, and then we project their writing. And if they can make it all the way through the piece without finding any errors, and I mean it's any errors, from a small capitalization to something, not spelling, we usually don't bust them on that, but if they have every element, do they have every element of the Oreos, and they get the chair of cheer. But typically it's fear, because most of the kids think they're finished and then they go up and then they don't finish. But the idea is just, okay, now go back and edit and revise. So it's also getting them to look at their writing from a different perspective, not just because when they write it, of course, they think it's right and it's correct. But if they have to revisit it in more of a public setting, they typically will see it with different eyeballs. All right, so we got that's writing, super important as they go to high school and college. I mean, reading's important, but the writing will become super important. So if you want your kids to get a leg up on deep and complex learning in high school, you want them to focus on the writing, this because it's completely without judgment and bias at this point. I'm really not grading them. I'm more just asking them to expand their thinking. So, they have full license to just try things. But, the more they write, the more comfortable they're going to be with it. Social studies, they have the studies weekly we've been working on. We use that kind of just as a simple text. It's not the greatest thing, and I think, but it's okay because it covers a lot of material in a short little manner. But we're going to be getting this next trimester is probably going to be all about the American Revolutionary War. And so we will use it as a backdrop for that, but we have other resources that we're using, and then we'll have our walk through the revolution. So, but check out Studies Weekly. No score should be below 80% on that, because they can always ask for help, and they're not supposed to turn it in until they find text evidence to support the answer on the quiz. So if their score is less than 80%, they are not hooking in, and they are not asking for help. And because anybody that needs help on that, they can just come out, hey, I can't find the answer to this question. And then we go in, we look at the text, and we say, oh, here it is right here. So 80% is a minimum achievement level for Studies Weekly. Regarding Newsela, for all those kids out there that want to get a 4 on their report card in informational text, this is what you should be doing every week. I put it on the honors optional work. They read an article. Right now I've just assigned, because we're studying immigration. And so I've assigned some text set on immigration that pertains to Esperanza Rising. They should read these articles. They can adjust the reading level. I think it goes from, I think it starts at 3rd. I think it maybe goes down to 3rd grade level, but there's a way to adjust the reading level that makes the article more approachable for the kids. And I think it goes up to 12th grade level. I don't know, you might want to check it out. You can toggle the reading level and make it really hard, and it's really intense, and the vocabulary is really, really high. And also you could simplify it if you just want to kind of learn about the subject. But everybody really should be doing that. I probably will start putting that on not an honors task, or we'll be doing it more in class, because it's really good reading, and it's really hard to find, pertinent nonfiction material. It's hard to find those library books that match, but this is a great way for them to digest a little bit of nonfiction reading that's appropriate. So Newsela should be a #1 priority for the nonfiction reading going forward. Zing e-learning is just science, real quick science lessons we have. Most of the science lesson we do, though, here we're using the new curriculum. We have a brand new curriculum called Twig Science, and we have the old curriculum that's kind of an old standard, and then we have the hands-on stuff that I've created. So, but Zing e-learning is just there. You can see little mini lessons, and it's something that you could check out. So everybody should be logging into Jupiter Ed every week. This week you don't have to, because they didn't really put any grades to review on there for you because of the parent conference stuff. But get in the habit of logging in and checking information on that. All right, so now we get to the report cards. Quite frankly, the report card that's more important for you is the student write-up that I gave about each student. I kind of thought about each kid individually with strengths and areas of concern, and then areas to focus. So that's a real report card from me. And then we have the Marengo report card that has the numbers on it. I'm being recorded, so I'll be careful what I say. But the marks on this report card, you can see right down here, I've kind of graded a lot of it on potential as well as performance. So there were quite a few very, very high scores. But I told the kids in class today that they will not be getting those same scores on the next trimester unless they really demonstrate that through their performance. I was very lenient, because I want, this is the potential I saw in the kids. Like, yeah, they don't always hit the standard, but most of the time they do. And I know that they have the ability to do it once they get into, develop their learning habits. So, they're getting a 3 or a 4. But going forward, I don't want to have grade inflation where they think, oh, I can do whatever I want and get a high score. So they have to start performing at, a deep and complex level to get a 4. They have to demonstrate that to me in one way, shape, or form. And then to get a 3, they have to meet the standard pretty much all the time. The basic 5th grade standard. So parents, don't be surprised if you see grades go lower second trimester if they're not earning them. So I'm just letting you know that. The other reason to have grades that are a little bit on the higher side the first trimester is because the report card's obviously a document that gets passed on to the middle school. And like last year, they used they used it as a multiple measure for placement. And I didn't think that was really that fair because, you know, a child can start off at a level 2 and end up at a level 4. And you shouldn't judge their abilities based off the first trimester score. You should base it off the last trimester, but they took it as a multiple measure. So with that in mind, I felt, you know, no child should be penalized for, you know, starting where they start, and then you will see where they end up. So again, the reason for a little bit higher marks on the report card. The most important on the report card to me is effort. You know, if they're putting in great effort, they could be at a level 4, but really need improvement on effort. They could be at a level 2 and have excellent effort. But so if you see E's on your child's report card, you know, that you should be very proud of that, because I feel that they're trying really hard and doing a good job. And M is fine. You know, a lot of the students will say, oh, I didn't get all E's. Well, you're not excellent in everything. You're not really crushing it in your effort and everything, you know. Some are, but not everybody is. So M is fine, E is great, and I just means, hey, let's really work on that. All right, so then some goals. I think this is the most important thing here, is to set goals. And these are the goals that I think you should have in the next trimester, or at least you should come up with your own. But basically, we want to start, you know, working on advanced degrees of reading achievement in different genres. I think Newbery Award winners, or any, you know, like California Young Medal Reader Award, any book that's been recognized as, you know, a good solid book that has depth of characters and content is worth their reading. Of course, it'd be nice to get some biographies in there, maybe some classics, stuff like that. In terms of math, the mathematical practices are really important. How we modeling math, not just doing the workbook page and just getting the answer and moving on. So we really want to, the goal, and you will see this come to fruition in high school and middle school, is if they learn how to model their thinking now with pictures, they will have a deeper level of understanding of the base, and they won't forget the strategy as much. What will happen, I'm sure, to many of us older people, we knew how to do the long division just by rote, but we didn't really understand what it really meant to divide, you know, place values, the different values of the places in the number. And so modeling is super important. We try to get them to work on it in class, and oftentimes the children fight us on it. They don't like models. They want to do the cheesy algorithm. And so every time they're doing a cheesy algorithm, you can, you know, take away something from their plate at dinner, so they can't eat until they do a model. Just kidding, you can eat, but draw your models. Use close reading strategies. So when they read, especially like an article or a text, not so much a novel, you know, have them annotate, highlight, you know, pull things apart out of the book. And to me, the most important annotation they can make is some sort of connection. Connect text to self, text to world, text to text. So if they are making personal connections, they're going to have a much deeper understanding of what that literature means to them. It's not so much about studying for a test. So work on close reading strategies. Of course, you know, work on sophisticated writing techniques. And when we ask them to do sophisticated writing techniques, they are not born with that. So you have to write with them. You have to give them the language that models for them sophisticated technique. How to make a simple sentence, turn that into a complex sentence. How to take dependent clauses and, you know, compound sentences. How to use appositives or other kind of writing techniques that as adults we'd use, but they don't know it yet. So when they write, give them, if they write a simple sentence, give them a way to write that with more complexity, and you will see their writing take off. So don't think they have to write it all by themselves. You know, let them write, and then don't grind them on spelling and grammar. That's not as important as their content. So model for them. Take one part of their article, their essay or their Oreo response, and then rewrite it for them and say, I think it'd be better if you did this. I think this sounds more sophisticated, but it's up to you. You can use my thought or you can keep your own. It's okay. So IXL skills, super important there. Work and study skills. Participating in class, super important. We have typically about a third of the class is very participatory and about 2/3 hangs back. And then start thinking of honors not as optional, but as mandatory, even if you have to skip and modify. So if your child is high achieving, skip the boring stuff. Just write me a letter or an email saying, hey, I know that so-and-so already knows how to do this. They already have mastery in this. So just tell me, Mr. Ray, I'm substituting a newsletter article for this. And I'm totally cool with that, because I'd rather have them work at a deep and complex level than a workbook, mundane, boring level where they're not gonna learn anything except that they're meeting the teacher, they're doing the teacher thing, like, oh, I'm gonna please the teacher, I want to please the teacher. So we have to get away from the idea of their work being like, I say, you do. It should be conversational, and you know them. You're the most important teacher in their life. So if you feel that they have mastery in something, omit that task. Just let me know. You can even just write on their sheet, we omitted this, we substituted this, and that's fine. So we're working for depth and complexity, because I'd rather have them get to that honors type stuff than do the boring stuff. All right, and then finally, we need more leaders in the class, and we need to really focus on our character and collaboration and cooperation. We are seeing a little bit of silliness, not just in room 26, but it's kind of I think it's probably school wide, but in 5th grade in general, there seems to be, we're kind of getting the idea that school is supposed to be silly and fun all the time, not hard work. And so we need to talk to our kids and say, hey, when you go to school in the morning, your job, number one, is to learn as much as you can and be as, have the best character you can and treat and really learn how to treat others, with a lot of respect. So I told the kids that in class today. It's like, hey, trimester 2 starts on Monday. We're gonna really hold them to a really high standard, and kind of try to get rid of the silliness and the off-taskness stuff. And with that being said, that's it. So go through the information. Reading is most important, writing second most important, math skills third most important, character always important. So on the homework tomorrow, I'll send out an email after this with the link to the parent conference. We don't have to parent conference. I have enough slots for us all to do that. But when we're conferencing, do not sign up for a conference just to hear me say the same stuff again. I want you and your child to come with questions or concerns and goals and say, because I just want to have a conversation. I want to talk about, hey, this is what I see your strengths, and these are the goals I have for you, and this is what I think you can do. And hopefully it's obvious, or that they are not being spoken down to at any point. So this is truly a collaborative effort. They have an equal say in it. But so don't go to the conference and say, let's go over the report card again, because that's not that important. If you want to discuss why they're at a certain level, we can look at the data again, but I don't want to waste time because the grades aren't as important as their goals for next trimester. So sign up for that, and it'll be good. Any questions?
If we have any questions on how some of the programs that you use or sites that you use, should we save that for our one-on-one, or should we ask them now?
You can ask. Yeah, if they're pertinent to everybody, ask. Yeah.
So in IXL, I know you have like a goal of certain amount of skills that they should complete. I don't remember the numbers or the quantities, but
I do like 2 a day. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think Sebastian had worked on like half of the amount that you had requested, but it was a mix of like 5th grade, 4th grade,
Yeah.
6th and 7th
Yeah.
grade. Like he was kind of all over the place.
Yeah.
So are you counting
Yes,
those?
those count, yeah.
They do?
Typically, like, because sometimes in class, I assign them, I make, like, if I'm teaching a lesson on commas, then I'll assign an in class on commas. And it might be, it might be from 3rd, it might be from 4th, it might be from 5th grade, it might be from 6th grade. And then typically for homework, I'm making recommended skills. And sometimes, most of the time from now on, they're going to be 5th grade, but in the past, I've recommended a variety of different skills. So you'll
Yeah,
see
'cause I
different-
had a conversation with him and asked him why
Yeah.
they range in, the grade level. And he said sometimes
I've
he
assigned-
has tried the 5th and 6th, but then ends up choosing to do
fine,
the like not ready yet
Yeah, That's
option.
perfect. Perfect.
So if he
That's
goes
okay.
back, that's
That
okay.
counts. Yeah, that counts.
Okay.
And that actually is the goal for them, is if they look at the 5th grade as a starting point, wow, I just don't understand this. You want to hit the not ready for this. And then you want to hit it again if that's even difficult, because in a perfect world, they will find the appropriate level for instruction. It's not going to be where they started. So if Sebastian's doing the right thing, he's doing that. He's doing the not ready for this. Hey, this is too hard. Not ready for this. This is too hard. And keep going until he gets it. Like, okay, now I'm kind of figuring it out. Then that's totally appropriate.
Okay. And then for ScoopPad, do you guys only work on that in class, or should he be doing that at home too? Because I think,
Okay, the one thing I forgot about ScoopPad is there's two things. There's assignments that I make. So he has a weekly assignment, or it's an honors. It's either assigned to him or it's an honors optional. But they get an assignment. It's either called honors or it's called like weekly practice. But then also, if he wants to practice more, there's something called adaptive practice. The ScoopPad is a program that I bought that it's like, if you get it right, it moves you up a level. If you get it wrong, it moves you down a level. So it's constantly adapting to the student's learning.
okay.
So the more practice, and if it's really hard, I can adjust that down. I can move to a different grade level.
Good afternoon. Excellent.
So yeah, because-
Very good. I can tell you're trying. That's excellent.
Somebody's,
How
I don't see
did
how-
it go with the flex,
somebody's talking.
the meter?
I can't. How do I find out who's talking?
Oh,
Malloy,
Were you planning on setting it up, or
Anybody? I know I should be able to see who's talking, but
Caroline,
we can just not do
Carolyn
it?
Park.
Let's just forget about it. Yeah,
okay.
because you're pretty good about, no, don't worry.
Okay. Now she's muted.
okay.
Obviously, she's, double multitasking. Okay, so Sebastian's doing the right thing on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then my last question, for Jupiter on the scores,
Yeah.
if there's anything missing, it'll show on that scores side,
Yeah.
right?
So at this point, I'm wiping out all the first trimester scores. You won't see those anymore because it doesn't really matter what they did in the first trimester. We're moving on, but you'll see. Okay, so on Jupiter is really kind of more for me and for parents. The only thing we really look at there is missing or incomplete assignments. The grades, like I might put an E for excellent. I might put a check if it's like just a standard workbook page we did. I'll put a check. And so some parents will say, "How come I didn't get an E? How come you didn't get an E on that assignment?" Because it was just a simple task. So I just check it off like, yeah, you did it, great.
Okay.
But it'll show on the report.
listening
It might
to the
show as a
right-
lower grade on the report. But it's not like he did it poorly. If you see a check minus, it means like, hey, it wasn't fully done, or it could have been done a little bit better, in my opinion. But it's very subjective. So don't so much rely on any grade unless it's like there's a test and there's certain points.
Oh yeah, no, I wasn't looking for the score. I was just checking because he had like 2 or 3 things in the past that
Yeah.
he was missing. So I
Yeah.
was looking for those and they weren't there, which I assume he completed.
So he probably completed them in class, or yeah, I would
So
imagine.
that's
'cause-
where any missing work would show
Yeah,
up though.
it
in
would
the
show up
score.
there. And
Okay.
then, so typically like Fridays, will be like makeup days. And I'll give him a piece of paper that says like, hey, you didn't complete these assignments, but then, sometimes I forget to change the score too. They finished it, they send me an email, but I didn't change the score. So overload of data. But yeah, if there's something missing or incomplete, it should show there.
Okay. Sorry, I have one more.
Yep.
In the studies weekly, you said something about use text evidence, but I think aren't those like multiple choice?
Yeah, so when they take the quiz, I asked the kids to open up 2 tabs. So the first tab would be the article and the second tab would be the quiz. And so they're supposed to read or listen to the article first, and then they take the quiz. And so when they get a question, they should revisit. In a perfect world, they would revisit the article and highlight the text, saying like, oh, here's the answer. So they would highlight it, and hopefully they found the right one. But he can also ask, hey, I still can't find the answer to this, because it's more, the goal there is kind of learning how to use a text to find specific factual information.
Okay, I thought you wanted them to like write something.
No, it would
down
just
or
be
something.
for finding evidence when they answer a question on the test.
Okay, got it.
Good questions, 3 good questions, gold star. Isabel, you have your hand up?
Hi, Mr. A. So I'm a little confused just because in one section, I believe that it said for IXL, for example, it was something like 433 for math. And then in another section on this paper, I think it said about 200. So
Yeah. So the full year, there's 400 plus skills for math, and there's about 200 for ELA. So the main goal there, forget about what they've done in the past. I think on average, they should be chipping away at those skills. And even if you're doing it with them together, they can be done quickly. The idea is not to burden them with a ton of busy work, just to introduce the concept and do some quick practicing. So it's even okay to, like, I play a game in class of you do one, I do one. And so we get through the skill really fast, but I'm teaching at the same time. So it's like, okay, my turn. I get to do this problem, and then I'll do it, and I'll I'll be teaching at the same time I'm doing it, using self-talk, and then Isabel will do one, and then I watch her, and I say, oh no, you didn't do that, so, and then I do one. So you can get a lot of skills done quickly that way, and expose them to that skill and standard.
okay, so is it, because I've been trying to watch her, but she just goes through it so fast.
Yeah.
You click on it, and then when you complete that one click, is that one skill, or
you get, like, the way it works typically is like you do one question, you get 10 points. You do the next question, you get 9 points. You do the next one correct, you get 8 points. You miss one, you go down a little bit. You get another one right, it goes up a little bit, and then you get to 50. So it should go fairly quickly. And if it's a skill they kind of already know, it should take them 3 to 5 minutes to finish it, to get to 50.
And then that one click is like one skill, and then you get that score and you go to the next click?
No, it's so that you probably have to answer 7 questions correct to get to a SMART score of 50, and that's a skill.
Oh, okay.
So she'll choose a skill, and it's best if you just use the ones I recommend on the homework first.
Yes.
So you click on that and then work your way to 50. But it is okay to help them with it, because it really is about exposure and teaching rather than like, a graded assignment.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, Mr. A. Thank you so much. And I'm sorry I missed the first part of your presentation, but one of my questions was that for the for social studies and science, how can we help them get like a higher grade for these 2 areas?
Yeah, so social studies is really, well, you've picked the 2 subjects that are more that are less grade specific, more of just participatory.
Yes.
And exposure. So in social studies, just engaging in the conversation, reading the material, connecting to the material, And science is typically of a higher interest level for the kids because it's just, the 5th grade mind, I think, appreciates the unanswered questions of science. And history, social studies is more exposure. And the main goal for that would be to learn how to use a text to answer factual questions to prepare them for middle school when they take it. They're going to have a social studies textbook and they're going to read the textbook and they're going to answer, it's going to be old school. And then making personal connections. So like if Ryan can connect to the topic some way, shape, or form, then that's meeting the goal. In terms of grade, if he's doing really well on the studies weekly quizzes, and in terms of science grade, if he's doing really well on the Zingy learning and the science tests, he's going to get a high score. That's more just based off their performance on the little quizzes and grades.
Thank you. But there's nothing that they can like study at home or prepare for it.
Well, every test will have a study guide attached to it, well in advance, and basically I give them the test prior. I tell them every question is going to be on the test, and the goal there is just to teach them how to, kind of do old school memorization and studying.
Yes.
And then perform, then spit it back out. But that's not my main goal. My main goal is to, invite them to be curious about history and curious about science, scientific information.
Thank you so much. And can I ask a question about reading, like the appropriate books of reading? Like, should we order them from Epix or what do you suggest?
Well, probably when we should probably have, individual conference, and I can kind of gear it directly to him.
Yes.
I am, so I sent an email this week to you with a revised information for reading for him. So we could talk about that. But next week he'll have specific tasks that I've modified, and I've revised it for Ryan to help him with the reading material.
Thank you so much.
Hi, Mr. A. This is Jennifer. I have a question. I was looking at, let's see, it was the Jupiter report. It says like dragged on it, and it has all of the assignments.
Yeah.
There was grades on there, and I'm just wondering how to interpret those. Kind of thinking about back what you said about how like the report card grades are a little inflated.
Yeah.
How do I like?
You just ignore them. Quite frankly, the only grades that you should really look at are like a unit test. Because the other is just a lot of subjective, like, did you finish it? You get credit. It's like a credit, no credit thing. So it doesn't really equate to report card grades. It's more of just a way that I can monitor activity. If you see scores that look for trends more than anything else, if you see like, in our world, when I grew up, you wanted to get a 90% or 80%, then that just doesn't fly anymore. So like even on the math test we take, it's hard to equate what they do into a percentage. So a lot of it is subjective.
Okay. How do I know that, how would you know your students on track, like for ELA, if benchmark is kind of, like you had said?
Yeah. I think you look for trends and you look for ranges. Like if you see for benchmark, 70% and above is really good. 50 to 70 is okay. And below 50 is probably not so good right now. In terms of tests, like science tests, and social studies tests that I give them a study guide for, you can look at percentages on that. But that's typically effort based more than ability based, because they either didn't study or they didn't really take it seriously. So if you see a low score on something that's a point based off points, it's either they just didn't do their best effort on that. So I would be concerned about that. I'd say, I think it's not unfair to say, look, Mael, you have to, every assignment should be 80% or above, or you can redo it, because we can do retakes all day long. It's very easy. Hey, do it again, do it again. Because the goal is not to give them a grade. The goal is to build their proficiency. So all parents, it's okay to request retakes on math tests, especially, language arts tests, it's hard. I can't reassign a benchmark test because it's the exact same test, but I can give them alternative type tests that would teach a similar strategy. So I think probably Jennifer, just ask me, send me an email like, hey, I'm concerned about this score, you know, and I'll let you know. It's like, yeah, it's fine. This score is good, or
Okay.
she can improve.
All right, thank you.
I have another question.
Yep.
Besides the Oreo thing that you've provided, do you have any other suggestions or any other practices that they can be doing to
Improve their writing.
improve their writing? Sebastian's
Yeah.
struggling a little bit with that. I'm not sure if that's just
Yeah.
like me sitting down with him, like you said, and helping him.
I think,
or-
well, first and foremost, for all the students, they should never turn anything in that isn't capitalized at the beginning of a sentence. And we've had a major problem with kids. They just rush through it, especially when it's computerized. So it's fair to come up with your own checklist. Like, Sebi, don't turn anything that doesn't start with a capital letter and doesn't have a period mark or question mark or exclamation mark at the end. I mean, because if we keep it that simple, like, we have to do this every time. And because then he starts thinking about his writing right away. The other thing I would recommend is keeping a journal informally, just keep an informal journal and letting him free write. You know, they don't get a lot of just free write time. And especially for somebody that, you know, is, you know, wanting to develop their writing, like keeping a journal and writing about their emotions or their day, or, and then we're not reading it to read their ideas or criticize their writing. We're just saying, oh, that was a great idea, Sebi. That was awesome that you did that. But hey, can you go back and check your capitalization? So, you know, maybe he, you know, so it's not like an assignment where he feels like he has to perform a certain way. And then modify, you know, really modeling for him. Like when he writes something, I think it's fair to say like, okay, you have a good idea here, but let's maybe think about writing it this way, and then have him read that back. And then, you know, as time goes along, you should see a lot of progress.
Okay.
But informal writing is super important to them. And then just responsive writing.
I was just trying to figure out if outsourcing or going somewhere where he can learn certain techniques or things like that, if you had any opinions or suggestions on that, or is that just kind of we have to go with
so in the perfect world, let's say I'm working with him one-on-one with writing, I would, you know, unpack the questions first so we all understand what we're doing. I jot down some ideas, and I would be doing the jotting down. He would be just telling me his ideas. So I take away the burden of writing from him. And so we're generating as it is together. And then I'm the guide. And so I'll say, okay, so how do you want to start this response? We should start it off with rephrasing the question. And then if he can come up with that rephrase, great. If he can't, I'm going to help him. I say, well, what about this? Does that sound okay? And then yes. And then so I write. And then I'd say, okay, now we need some evidence. We need to come up with some proof for this. And then so we look in the text together and we find it together. And I say, which one of these do you think is the best thing to do? So I'm guiding, and also helping him write. And then he reads it back. Or I'll say, so how do you want to phrase that? And he'll give me the sentence, and then I can write it with him. So it's kind of a collaborative writing approach. The good thing about that is it takes way less time and it's way less frustrating for the student, because they don't feel like they're on an island by themselves. So that modeled writing, collaborative writing, if you sit down with him and do it, you'll see a lot of improvement really fast, especially if you're giving him guiding questions. What do you think about that? Or what do you have an opinion about that? Can you think of something else, or something that you know that connects with this? And then he'll say, yeah, oh yeah, actually one time we went to the restaurant, and okay, great, let's write that. So a lot of guiding questions, and then collaborative writing and modeling. I think at this point is probably the best way to do it because they can get it done quickly. They're proud of their work at the end. And then you can say that and say, hey, remember last time we wrote that? We're going to have a similar approach this time.
Okay.
And then
Thank you.
eventually we cut the string and they have to, fly on their own. So.
Thank you.
Yep. All right, 2 o'clock, people. Anybody have more questions? 2 o'clock, and we're moving to 3 o'clock.
I just have one quick question, Mr. A. I think maybe I missed this. How important is the participation in class? Because I get to be in there a lot, and I see that my kid doesn't really raise her hand a lot. So how important is that for her overall grade?
No, it's not. It's not important for a grade. There's no expectation for participation. I mean, there's many ways to participate too, because you don't want to say, I don't think it's fair to say, because we do have different learning styles, to say like, hey, you have to do this, that, and that. If you're hooked in and engaged in the learning, and you can model that by, reflective listening, not active participation, but you can be like, Amaya is very participatory. She just is not, always vocalizing that, but she's engaged, and there's other ways that she demonstrates that she's participating in the class. So no, and but public speaking is important, and so maybe if that's something you see, then you make that a goal. Like, hey, I think just something to work on. Let's answer one question, or let's make one connection, or a week. Let's just to make it a goal. Did you participate, and in what manner did you participate this week? And I think that's totally appropriate.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question, Mr. A. Do you have any recommendations on how we can help make sure the student gets everything done? For Chloe, and I check with her every day that she's doing what she needs to do. But at the end of the week, I would get the email that says she's missing some assignments, and she's not even aware of that. Is there any way, any recommendations on your side?
Well, that's the classic welcome to middle school syndrome. They just don't take ownership. I mean, it's not their fault because they've been raised through in a system that doesn't expect them to actually always do their work. And sometimes they think they've done it, and honestly, they think they finished it, and they're just not, because they're not really, mature enough in life experience to realize what it means to be finished or not finished, and actually prove it. Like, oh, show me that you did this. So part of it is just the natural course of things. And typically I don't expect them to finish all their work. And usually it's after the new year. Usually it's like, hey, after, when we start January, we're 5 months away from middle school. And now's the time where we practice enough. You should know if your task's been completed or not. So at this point, it's more of a reminder to them, like, hey, you really felt you were finished, but like, let's say IXL, for example, they think they've done 8 skills or 6 skills, which was the goal, but maybe 2 of them were only done to like a SMART score of 40. And so they get a note saying like, you didn't complete this, because they didn't finish it to the level that they were supposed to, but in their mind, they finished it because it shows, wow, I did practice on those skills. So a lot of it's just kind of teaching them and training them how to be aware of their environment. So when they get to middle school, they won't have the classic, what? I didn't know, I thought I did that, because then they get a grade. So I would use the checklist first and foremost, and don't check off anything that's not actually verified finished. Because a lot of times the students would check things off as they work on them, not when they finished them. And so I would say, don't check it off until it's absolutely done and you can prove it's done. And then probably use like a different color to check everything off, so that it's not like check, I did all my work. I'll save it for Thursday and I'll just check everything off on Thursday. But that's a growth and development project. And it's okay not to finish things at this point, because it's just practice. All right, anybody else? 2 o'clock, or is this all 3 o'clockers?
Thank you.
Okay, 2 o'clock. I'll see you later. Have a great weekend. 2 o'clock, people.
Thank you.
I'll send out the link for the parent conference sign up. And if any of those times don't work, we can arrange a different schedule. It doesn't have to be done that week.
Thank you. Bye.
All right. Okay, so who's 2 o'clock? Raise your hand if you're 2 o'clock, brand new to this Zoom. Anybody?
3 o'clock or 2
3
o'clock?
3 o'clock.
Oh, 3 o'clock. Sorry, 3 o'clock. 3
Oh,
o'clock
okay.
new to Zoom. 2
3
o'clock.
o'clock.
Okay. So I'm gonna stop recording. Let me see. How do I stop the recording now? Stop recording. Am I still recording? I'm still recording. Okay. Stop the recording.